All right, continuing with our Warhammer World Championship coverage, and we have a real treat for you here today. Best of 5 between TheGreenOne, TGO, of ODM. Very good, long-standing player, though I'm not sure how up-to-date he is on like the meta and stuff. I know he hasn't been playing as much recently, but perpetual faction war qualifier, top 4 finisher in a lot of tournaments, so TheGreenOne is very good. On the other side, we have current faction war champion, number 2 player in the world behind Alfredino, RTK's SiPa. So, very excited to the best of 5 between them. I just say number 2 behind Alfredino because that's how they finished in the last Warpstone Cup. Since then, I mean, SiPa's won plenty of tournaments, though he plays more than Alfredino does, so it's like, well, you know. He hasn't beat Alfredino in a tournament that I've seen in a while. Ooh, beautiful side shot there from the Iron Blaster. Anyway, I'll stop rambling about the players enough. SiPa is very, very good. But TheGreenOne's one of those legacy players that can always pull out a win if you're not expecting it. If you're not taking him seriously. SiPa's on his favorite faction, his beloved Dark Elves, starting off with the High Beastmaster. Tormentor Sword as a net. It looks like he's going to probably pop that net soon. There he is, keeping the Iron Blaster in place so that bolt throws and gets some nice shots. We have Harpies, Cold One Knights, a Charybdis, Firecaster with Burning Head, some Dread Spears, and a Reaper Bolt Thrower. Some units you're not used to seeing here from the Dark Elves, but I do understand why SiPa took all of them. It seems pretty clever. Charybdis, good anti-large armor piercing, so good versus the Ogres' various single entities that are quite strong, and then decent against any of their other units that are also large-sized. Both Burning Head's leadership debuff and the Charybdis' leadership debuff, the Ogres are actually a pretty low leadership faction overall. That'll get rid of a lot of their Noblars and terror out them off and force the Ogres to just fight in Dread Spears and Cold Knights all by themselves, so it's pretty clever. I like it. For the TheGreenOne's Ogres, we already have action as Sabertusk packs are pairing up with the Eshin Maneater, the Flying Taco Classic, marked for Eaton and Weeping Blade, making the Cold Knights easy prey for the Sabertusk packs. Other than those, we have some Golgies, Maneaters, Piggyback Riders, Noblars, Ogre Bulls, an Iron Blaster, and then, the replays are in Spanish, so I might screw up a few things, but we have a Troll Guts Caster, and then an Ogre Paymaster with Cash Cascade and Headhunt. So the Ogres going with a very diverse build, as are the Dark Elves, both sides actually bringing a lot of different unit types, not just like, oh, here are the 4 meta units, and that's all we're taking kind of thing, but, TheGreenOne certainly getting some good engagements in the early game here. We see multiple mobility units getting routed off. Harpies, Dark Riders, Cold Ones all heading for the hills in trade for so far just an Ogre Bull. And I thought I saw one Sabertusk pack take a lot of damage earlier. Looks like it's gone off the map, but I did see it routing beforehand. So Ogre's pretty happy with this early game. Iron Blaster continues to fire at Cold One Knights, trying to tax them a little bit. And Sabertusk packs are going to get jumped on. Caught sleeping at the wheel a little bit, trying to get movement orders before they rampage, but the rampage comes in too quickly, and they're honestly going to probably rout before long. That is a lot of damage on those guys, so they're heading for the hills. Eshin Maneater helping Piggyback Riders and the Ogre Paymaster fight against the Charybdis. Decent damage there from those single entities versus the Charybdis. And Ogre Bulls and various Sabertusk packs are trying to chase down the Cold Knights who are affected by a Dismember, lowering their speed by 60% for just a bit, getting them fully caught up in the Ogres units, so now they can't retreat from anybody. Looks like they're just going to turn and take the fight, and that fight is going pretty well for them, all things considered, annihilating another Sabertusk pack as Dread Spears close in. Bounce power is slightly ahead for the Ogre Kingdoms, but not definitive at all. At this point in the game, really anybody could take it. As the Dark Elves are closing in on the Iron Blaster down to half HP, though Troll Guts could easily amend that. Really not a big deal for the Ogres. If you felt like healing the Iron Blaster, they definitely could, as their forces are starting to waver a bit on this back flank. The Cold One Knight's doing a lot of good damage to the Ogre Bulls in the area. Iron Guts are pulled forward to try and support a little bit, but you can see these other Ogre Bulls still very healthy, but gonna rout anyway. Did mention they have those leadership problems that are only made worse when the Charybdis or Burning Head get involved. Weeping Blade for the Charybdis down to 27 armor. Golgies, Maneaters, the Eshin Maneater, and the Ogre Paymaster are all just absolutely slapping that thing. And despite its Hydra-like body, it does not actually have any sort of healing. Troll Guts down onto Golgies, Maneaters, and Cash Cascade to give them more melee stats. Looks like they really want to snipe out that Charybdis while they can. Iron Blaster still under duress. Sorceress of Fire going to chase it around for a bit. Reaper Bolt Thrower still getting shots in occasionally, but now it's out of range. So they do pivot onto the Maneaters. trying to help out the Charybdis, but really not a lot of resources dedicated from SiPa yet to save that thing. Now we have Cold Knights rear charging, and the Lord is coming over, but it is too late for the Great Beast, as it is going to just start running. Eshin Maneater pops his Maneater Smoke Bomb, mostly for the melee defense, not as much for the explosion. Explosion didn't really save him from anything. TheGreenOne did manage to get a Saber Tusk pack sneaking into the backline of the Dark Elves, and it is going to shut down the Reaper Bolt Thrower pretty quickly, and a nice win for the Ogres. They are pulling ahead of the balance power, and I would tend to agree. The Dark Elves are just losing a lot of important things. Really, the only thing left on the Dark Elf roster that is powerful is their Dread Spears are mostly still rather healthy, which is funny. Normally, late games don't come down to your chaff versus everything else. They come down to a couple expensive pieces trying to cycle charge and whatnot, but the Dark Elf chaff has been largely ignored. The Ogres will have to deal with it sooner rather than later, but they seem to have the tools to manage it. They should be fine. Golgi's Maneaters and the Paymaster chasing around the High Beastmaster. But he's ripping those 360 anti-large armor-piercing shots, and you can see the Maneaters are having a pretty tough time of it. Now, Cold Knights have found their way onto the Maneaters, trying to finish them off, but just not able to. 2 leadership left, down to -11, and they do rout as the Bolt Thrower seals their fate. Speaking of sealed fate, in the background, the Iron Blaster did eventually get routed off by the Sorcerers of Fire, so this could be a Dark Elf comeback. A lot of bounce power held up by the Ogre single entities, which none of them are particularly impressive in melee combat. They're all more supportive in nature, but the bounce power doesn't know that, so it is going to be a little high. Speaking of Bolt Thrower firing in to rout off those Maneaters, I'm kind of surprised the Bolt Throwers are still alive at all. Saber packs finally routed them, did their deed, and now the Charybdis is coming back to the fight, running straight into Piggyback Riders. It is going to get flanked by the Saber packs, so can the Piggyback Riders' leadership hold long enough for that rear charge to come in? They're anti-large, and they're decent at it. Some of them decide to run away briefly, but they hold for just a second, and they tear her out. And the Charybdis turns and gets a beautiful charge onto the Saber-Tusk pack, so the Ogres, really unfortunate the Piggyback Riders broke at that exact second. It's a tough time for them on that far flank. Meanwhile, a Cash Cascade tries to keep Iron Guts in it, who are getting an overcasted Troll Guts. The Eshin Maneater fighting alongside them as well. Massacre pop, so a lot of buffs for the Ogres, but the Paymaster's getting low. The Iron Guts are also getting very low. And you can see these Dread Spears are proving to be a bit of a problem now that we don't have Golgi's Maneaters around to charge them. Not as many Saber-Tusk packs either, so clearing out these Dread Spears is proving to be a bit of a chore. And the High Beastmaster is charging in and out and in and out. He's just trying to keep these guys fighting. Speaking of keeping things fighting, the Charybdis on the far side, crazy low HP, 1 leadership as it continues to fight Piggyback Riders, but they just terror out. They're now immune to terror for a little bit, and that is enough to get rid of that Charybdis. It's the Dark Elves at least don't have a large terror-causing monster to charge into these wounded ogres later in the game. Eshin Maneater hanging back with the Iron Bellies, Iron Guts. For some reason, I keep wanting to say Iron Blaster because it was there earlier, and obviously that's not them, so then I'm like, what is their name? Butcher the Great Maw is going to peel off his Golgi's Maneaters, fight to the very end against the High Beastmaster and the Sorceress. Paymaster is able to push away the High Beastmaster, and he fired one of his last 3 shots, though it didn't go straight at the Ogre Paymaster. 360 shooting with fire at will on can be a little tricky in the late game. Beautiful shot onto the caster. Bolt Thrower is back online, which could be a bit of a problem. Bounds of Power is threatening to army loss the Dark Elves. I don't know if I would agree with that assessment just yet. Only 1 ammo left from the High Beastmaster. Then there's not a lot left for the Dark Elves, to be fair, but there's not a lot left for the Ogres either, and these Dread Spears just immediately get saturated with big Ogre bodies to poke at. If their leadership can hold, they can carry this game. Ogre Paymaster is routing. The Golgi's Maneaters have shattered. The Saber-Tusk pack does get onto that Reaper Bolt Thrower, but can the nearby rallying Cold One Knights come to its aid? One good charge could honestly break them. If the Paymaster is dead, that would make their leadership really low. The Bolt Thrower is routing, though, so it's too late for them. The Cold One Knight's not going to be able to do it, but the Ogres did just lose their Lord. They're losing the Butcher now, who is also routing. And a final undercast Troll Guts on the Iron Guts should heal cap them. Things are getting a little risky here. High Beastmaster has no ammunition, however, making it a lot harder for him to finish off anything. He is going to probably chase off that Butcher of the Great Maw, leaving the Dread Spears instead of chasing that unit to stay and fight the Eshin Maneater with his Iron Gut compatriots. Ooh, High Beastmaster overextending a little bit, does take a hit from that Eshin Maneater, which he can't really let happen. He does need to lean heavily on his Dread Spears to win this. As the Troll Guts has worn off, the Iron Guts are officially heal capped, and a Burning Head is going to go through them carefully, not going to hit the Dread Spears with too much friendly fire, but really wanted that burnt leadership debuff that we talked about at the start of the game. So now an Iron Gut is routing, but its leadership is fine, so that Sorceress is going to have to walk them off, and the Eshin Man-Eater seemed to determine for a second to not let that happen, but instead is going to turn back and fight the Dread Spears for the moment. Very, very close game one. Look at all these rallying Dread Spears now. I know their leadership is abysmal, but if you look at the Ogres, I mean, what do the Ogres actually have to kill them all, right? Just the Eshin Man-Eater, who's struggling to get damage on these basic Dread Spears? That doesn't seem likely. Sorceress is chasing off the Iron Guts. The Man-Eater has decided to peel away from the Dread Spears and go after her. I saw his Smoke Bomb was used relatively recently, so he doesn't have that big speed boost. In comes Marked for Eaten. It slows her a little bit, but he's still not able to catch up, and instead he turns around and fights the Dread Spears, but now he's fighting the Dread Spears in the trees. He has Woodsmen at least, but any forces that come to help him will take some debuffs for being large units fighting in the trees. Iron Gut's still getting routed off. So that Marked for Eating was a bit of a misplay. I see what he was going for. Obviously, he wanted the speed debuff to be able to catch up to her, but he didn't get to, so now that debuff just wasn't used. The Bolt Thrower crew is back on their mounts, firing in. The damage is going to be okay. Not amazing. Okay, you definitely take damage, but the main problem is the under artillery fire leadership debuff. They shatter in a miracle for the Ogre Kingdoms. They shatter. They saw the Eshin Man-Eater through their sights. The sights on their artillery pieces saw him turn towards them and start running. They're like, nah, fuck that. We're out. Peace. Later. Sabertooth packs are rampaging. 7 seconds left on them before they join the Man-Eater. The Man-Eater doesn't want to go in without them because he wants to break the charge bracing for the Dread Spears, but he needs those Sabertooths to follow up quickly after. Weeping Blade in, he's going to maybe route the Dread Spears. In come the Sabertooth packs. We have Piggyback Riders coming from the distance as well. And the High Beastmaster has walked the Butcher off. The Sorceress has walked the Iron Guts off, so they are starting to come back. But is it too late as a mass rout takes all the Dread Spears off the battlefield at once? And the Ogres are feeling pretty good. If you have another Burning Head in the tank, it can do a lot of damage to Piggyback Riders. It can also, you know, just annihilate their already wounded leadership. And then can you 2v1 the Eshin Man-Eater? He only has 1800 health, but between your two characters, you only have 2500, and neither of you was built for fighting like he is. Ogre shattering off the Dread Spears. The bounce power's turning once again against the Dark Elves, though it did get 50-50 there for just a little bit. It's back in the Ogre's hands. Really relying on that, ooh, yeah, that's the combo you need. Burning Head to kill out the Piggyback Riders, but you need the net for the Tormentor's Sword, so you can get a charge on the Ogres without letting them countercharge you. It's going to be a big thing in this game, so we're going to have to see if SiPa plays out this late game correctly, and if that's even enough, because he has to do all of that to even have a chance. If it doesn't go his way, then, you know, he's just doomed. Because the Chariot Lord and a weak caster hero is not enough to beat the Eshin Man-Eater. Not especially if he has Piggyback Riders and Sabertooth packs, but I'm going to just kind of assume that SiPa has something up his sleeve to get rid of him. I guess we are 13 minutes into this game. I don't know if he has any more Burning Heads left, but we'll see. I feel like he does. I feel like I haven't seen too many Overcast Burning Heads. Most of them have just been for the leadership debuff, which is Undercast. All right, I suspect we're going to see a Tormentor's Sword, but it is a little late. Oh, no. It's a little late. Marked for Eaten plus Dismember. The Eshin Man-Eater gets in range. He gets one hit on High Beastmaster. He's now trying to get away with 7 speed. And it looks like SiPa just throws in the towel at that point. Oof. The net was not in time. Just a little bit late on it. Allowed that Eshin Man-Eater to get the charge in and sealed his fate. Very close first game between these two. Solid win for the green one. And honestly, a concerning win. Because SiPa's Dark Elves are out, and they are his best faction. He's good with a lot of factions, but not fun to lose on your main, so rough way to start the series. Iron Blaster, one of the Sabertooth packs, and then the various Ogre units did pretty well. Paymaster, Butcher, not as much. Just kind of supportive with healing and buffs and stuff. For SiPa, his Lord got 2,100 value, his caster got 1,200 with those Burning Heads and charging down the Iron Blaster. Dread Spears all paid for themselves except for one. Dark Riders and Cold One Knights, more mixed value, but overall fine. Charybdis did okay as a support piece, but did get isolated out a little bit early, and the Reaper Bolt Thrower and Harpies struggled to get their value back. GG's. On to game 2. Beastmen for the green one versus Norsca for SiPa. Beastmen have not been as prominent as they were last patch. Last DLC, I should mean. After the DLC, it does feel like Norsca kind of took the crown of the mobile, low armor faction from the Beastmen. These guys were super meta, very prevalent in all the tournaments, and now they've just kind of fallen to being like a solid pick, you know, a solid. But you don't see them every best of 5 anymore. You don't see them as much as you see like Dark Elves. I think High Elves are more popular. You see Tomb Kings all the time and stuff like that. So, yeah, still good. Still good. Not trying to say Beastmen are bad at all. Just maybe they have a little extra oomph this game on trying to reclaim their prominence. So leading them, we have Malagor Darkhelm with just Flock of Doom, a front line of Ungor Spearman herds, and then we have Razorgors, Centaurs with throwing axes, and 2 Feral Manticores. On the other side, for Norsca, Marauder Horsemen and Horse Masters, including the Riders of the Mighty Serpent Regiment of Renown, 3 Norscan Ice Wolves, 3 Skin Wolves, 1 Javelin Thrower, and then Berserkers and Marauders led by a Great Shaman Sorcerer of Death, Spirit Leech, and Fate of Buna for him. This was honestly one of the more exciting additions for Norsca's place in the meta, was just a cheap Shaman caster. When you knew you had to take Throg or Wulfric, your opponent knew that as well, and it was just a tax on your army. We're seeing a lot more crazy wide Norscan builds now that they can just take a cheap caster lord and save themselves the Wulfric tax. Wulfric's not a bad character in certain matchups and certain builds, but the fact that you had to take him or Throg, no matter your opponent, was pretty rough on them, right? There's certain matchups where Seafang isn't that impactful, or there's a lot of fire damage to threaten Throg, so yeah, kind of tough. Both sides kind of jockeying for position this early in the game. Norsca was trying to use their superior skirmish, and the Beastmen seemed kind of happy to just sit back and let them have it. Though I'm wondering what they're going to do. I think GreenOne's just kind of trying to position in this early game, because he has no counterfire to the skirmish. 2 Centaurs with throwing axes is laughably outclassed by 4 Marauder Horsemen / Horse Masters, right? So, Beastmen got to make something happen. Norsca's more than happy to sit and wait. What's awkward is Norsca is also more than happy to take the frontline fight. Their frontline is far superior with Berserkers versus Ungor Spearman herds. So GreenOne's got to make use of his Feral Manticores. He's got to make use of his Centaur advantage in the sides, but rough early start for the Manticore. Dove in on some Norscan Ice Wolves. Got a little bit of poke out, but not enough to save the Chaos Warhounds, and it is continuing chase into the skirmish cap. We have, other Centaurs are coming up to help as well. There are Skin Wolves in the area. It's a risky position the Skin Wolves are in, however. Do not want to fight on top of Ungor Spearman herds, and they get freely charged. Big mistake there from SiPa, bringing these Skin Wolves over to help out, but then in the chaos of a very spread out battle, to be fair. In the chaos of a spread out battle, lost track of his Skin Wolves. They got free charge by the Centaurs, and the Feral Manticore terror routes them off. And I think that's what the Manticores are here for, is they're trying to dive in on random mobility fights and terror route off the dogs and Skin Wolves, making it easier for the Beastmen to run them off the battlefield. So it's looking a little tough. Norsca, I mean, the balance of power is 50-50, but just from what I've seen, the Beastmen are getting a lot of good work done, though. Big chunk onto those Centaurs with throwing axes. And the frontline fight is steadily winning for Norsca. No sexy big plays to be found here, no crazy outflanks or anything, but just Berserkers churning through Ungor Spearman herds is going to keep that balance of power just slowly ticking down in the favor of Norsca. For the Beastmen, nice flank attack. Do get the Marauder Hunters with Javelins and some Norscan Ice Wolves that are trying to defend them, so a big pile up here. SiPa is somewhat helpless to defend those units, just uses some Skirmish Cav to punish as best he can, but is trying not to get overly involved. Norsca's Skin Wolves are on the main frontline battle, killing off some Razorgore herds, which is fine, but I've also kind of in the distance seen them jockeying back and forth for position on this far flank, but this is the only spot that hasn't really gone to hell yet for either side. Norsca is crushing the front line. Beastmen are winning that, I'm going to say right flank. Right from our perspective. But the left flank is undecided as neither side really wanted to commit too many resources. Norsca is now making a big push on that flank. Skin Wolves and Dogs going to take out the Ungor Spearman herds, but Centaurs are still here and holding. Other Centaurs and Dogs fighting Skin Wolves au natural, which is rough. If you're not getting the charge for free, and if you're not fighting on top of Spearmen, you can take a lot of damage. A Manticore's coming over for a rear charge that they're hoping can break the Skin Wolves, but I don't know. Those guys have pretty full leadership right now. That would be a tall order to terror out them on the fly like that. Looks like we have a Fate of Buna coming in on an already wounded Centaur. That is not a good cast from SiPa. Definitely would want that back if he was reviewing this game or something, but that is so much wasted Winds of Magic on that random Centaur. Norsca's taking the lead at this point, though. Still have a decent amount of mobility elements on this flank. This Centaur has been overcommitted for too long. It's having a hard time running away, though, because of those Norscan Ice Wolves, but the winning front line for Norsca is, as we've mentioned, just this constant pressure. And while we keep talking about, like, Beastmen this, Beastmen that, Beastmen won this, Beastmen won that, I haven't been talking about as much just like, wow, watch the Berserkers absolutely kick the snot out of the Ungor Spearman herds and rout them off. Wow, watch the Berserkers continue to fight versus Centaurs and Razorgore herds. So it is constant pressure. It's not as much like holy big plays, so we haven't been talking about it nearly as much. I try and keep reminding you that it exists, and that's why the balance of power is 50-50, and this game is very close. But the green one has a harder to execute build, and he is overall playing it pretty well so far, and the game is 50-50 to show that. SiPa still has one Skin Wolf I can see that is pretty healthy and obviously capable of regenerating up. He has a second one with 11 models, which is actually quite a lot considering how low its HP was. So that Skin Wolf, if it is allowed to get some time to rest, could come in later in the game and be a bit of a problem for the Beastmen. Centaurs get charged by dogs. It was an uphill charge, so not as good for the Centaurs, but still gonna crush those dogs on impact. Centaurs very meaty when they get to face what is coming for them. Malagor is getting taxed down by Spirit Leeches, and his low health pool means we only have probably 3 more of those before he's routing or dead. But the Beastmen are surging forward with the last of their mobility remnants. A lot of low health bars, but there is strength in numbers. 4v1, 4v2 can do well. We see the Skin Wolves terror routing off from the Manticores, and that was the previously healthy Skin Wolf. So really big play there from the Beastmen, taking out the last healthy Skin Wolf and getting good damage on the Marauder Horsemen as well. Centaurs really beating the brakes off of these light cavalry, who are just kind of outclassed in melee stats versus Centaurs, even wounded ones. But with Skin Wolves back in the fight, Malagor's diving in to try and get them to rout because the Centaurs are not looking too hot leadership-wise. And again, neither are the Skin Wolves, who do end up routing before those Centaurs. SiPa Skirmish Cav out of ammo, or darn near out of ammo. One of them has 1 volley that they're currently using, so then they will just be underwhelming light cav. Norsca does take the lead on the balance of power. I believe their full health Shaman caster is a lot of that balance of power difference between the two armies because Malagor is so low, which means for all the damage dealing elements, this is still a very even game. Something is happening here. Oh, it's the Riders of the Mighty Serpent AoE aura of leadership. Gotcha. I was like, what is this circle? But then no spell was ever cast. Razorgore herd's getting very low. Centaur's getting very low. Ungor Spearman herd at half health is probably the healthiest unit still in this game besides the Shaman Sorcerer, but I see a lot of white flags from both sides coming up as the battlefield is going to clear up shortly, and who will come out on top? We have some Marauder Berserkers coming back from Norsca. Another very close barn burner on our hands. These games just keep coming down to the wire between the green one and SiPa. Norsca's starting to lose their grip on this, I feel. They're ahead on the balance of power, but again, I do think a lot of that is the healthy Shaman Sorcerer. I see a lot of their units are routing. Terror routes, taking out the Marauder Horsemasters, as there must be something nearby. There it is, the Manticores. The Manticores that I did not have faith in, coming back in the late game and causing all this terror among the super wounded troops of Norsca is pretty brutal. All of a sudden, with all the routing, it's 50-50 on the balance of power once again, as Marauders do manage to shatter off some stuff, but a Spirit Leech comes in for Malagor, and he does get baited down into Berserkers. A Flock of Doom plus a Manticore charge is going to try and take him out. Malagor is crazy low, and those Berserkers are barely hanging on to HP. They do have immune to psychology. They won't be terror routing anytime soon, but they might naturally rout as Malagor gets back up into the sky. He has 1 Spirit Leech left in him. Our prediction of 3 is looking pretty accurate because that was after 2. Malagor is even going to rout, taking the balance of power heavily in Norsca's favor. But Malagor is very fast. He should be able to get back up in the sky, but no, he is super slow on the ground apparently, as the Shaman Sorcerer gets a rear charge on him, and that could be the game-winning play because if Malagor dies, the leadership of the Beastmen that's already flagging is just going to become a full-blown disaster. Malagor is dead, and the game is over. 1-1. SiPa ties it up. I need a drink of my beverage. Damn. Damn. All right, for the green one, Malagor, 1100 value. Not crazy, as Flock of Dooms weren't able to find the right targets, it seems. No good blobs for them to really punish, but also that spell has been nerfed a little bit here and there, so Also not as OP as it could have been. Manticore's struggling for value, though they were mostly there as a terror piece, and Razor Gores also struggled a little bit. One of them did particularly well, however. SiPa as caster did well, considering his cheap price point. Berserkers did a good job. Skirmish Cav did a solid job as well. Skin Wolves, okay, overall fine. Overall fine. One got kind of deleted, but the other two did well. Norsca and Ice Wolves held up. GG's. All right. Boys and girls, there's a lot of series to cast for the Warhammer World Championship. A lot of games to go. I love these two, but let's get some shorter games. Let's make this a 3-1. I don't want to go to 5 games. I don't want interesting, compelling, edge-of-your-seat content. Okay, let's get some stomps in here. For the sake of my time and my schedule, I'm done with it. The green one on Grand Cathay versus SiPa's Tzeentch. SiPa certainly played a lot of Tzeentch. He won his faction war recently on it. For his piece of art, he got a Cultist of Tzeentch. So certainly well-versed in the tides of change. For his Tzeentchian force, we have a disc melee Tzeentch Lord, Golden Griffin of Theurgy, the ROR Lord of Change, an Exalted Hero of Tzeentch on his disc as well. He's just on the ground, though he did not bring his Book of RNG. So just using 2 anti-large armor-piercing duelists. Sorcerer of Tzeentch only brought Tzeentch's Firestorm. Then we have the Followers of the Great Eagle, Marauder Chariot ROR, Forsaken and Zongor Frontline, and a couple Marauder Horsemen. Very single entity heavy build, and it makes a lot of sense against Cathay. Their boxes can be rather intimidating. For Grand Cathay, this is no box. You have Jade Warrior Halberds and Peasant Long Spears, a Jet Lion with his bound Missile Mirror, but also his Yin Harmony, Alchemist with Searing Doom and Plague of Rust, Zaytang the Watcher to snipe out some of those single entities, Jade Lancers, Peasant Horsemen, and then we do have Signor Shugenin Sangre de Dragon, Shugenin Lord, with Dragon's Breath and Jet Shield. Jade Shield? Jade Shield. Not Jet Shield. Okay. So Zaytang is set up to kill those single entities, but not when they get on him this quickly, as he is starting to beat a hasty retreat. The Jet Lion is also going to have a very bad time against these 2 armor-piercing anti-large combatants. Gehenna's Golden Hounds wrecking the Jade Warrior Halberds from the Golden Griffin of Theurgy, and that's without even a Tzeentch's Firestorm just yet. Alchemist has to run away. The green one is on the back foot here. The infantry are pressing in. He's trying to cyclocharge some of them down, but Forsaken are hardy fellows as Tzeentch's Firestorm tries to punish multiple spear units that are near the Zongors. Force them out of position, but unfortunately the Zongors might be running into a little bit of friendly fire. Chews through their barriers and takes a quarter of their HP, a third of their HP, half. Uh-oh. Tzeentch, in his capricious ways, has definitely punished those Zongors for literally no reason, but SiPa would want their HP back. Definitely doesn't want that to be the way he starts out his charge. Other than that, though, things are going great for Tzeentch, honestly. Searing Doom is down from the Alchemist. Let's try to damage some of the Zongors that are just running past. Peasant Long Spears are already starting to rout. Even some Jade Warrior Halberds are breaking a little bit. And Zaytang just doesn't have the room to stand and fire. He's being constantly harassed by the Tzeentch Hero Squad. It looks like that's going to continue. Takes a bunch of damage from the Marauder Horseman and the Hero. Golden Griffin of Theurgy is close to routing off the Alchemist, so much so that the Shugenin Lord and some Peasant Horsemen have to run over and try and peel for her. And meanwhile, the front line's just going to shit. Forsaken heavily outclassing your Peasant Long Spears. Game's not going to Grand Cathay's plan. Balance of power is already reflecting that. Though Missile Mirror tries to damage the Marauder Horseman of Tzeentch. Still have full barriers, so that first volley, if they even fire it under Missile Mirror's effect, would be blocked up by that. Tzeentch's Firestorm ripping through Peasant Horsemen, forcing those Peasant Horsemen and Jade Lancers to scatter, and the Golden Griffin can just get back to his 1v1 that he was enjoying. With the Alchemist or the Shugenin Lord, he'll honestly take either. Still continued harassment onto Zaytang, down to half HP. Giant health pool on him, so it takes quite a while. Tzeentch throws out more and more spells onto Jade Lancers. They get a Jade Shield to give them some damage resistance, try and get them through that cast, but yeah, the Golden Griffin's bound spells, plus having a caster hero on Tzeentch, which is a roster that supports casters very well. There's a lot of spells flying out from that side. Saw some units shatter in the background. Other Peasant Long Spears are still routing. We do have just one Jade Warrior Halberd that's healthy. Everything else for Grand Cathay is very low as far as infantry goes. Shugenin Lord gets hit by the Chaos Lord, down below 2,000 HP and falling. Tzeentch has just been stuck in melee, and he's terrible at melee. His stats don't look that bad, but he just performs horribly bad in melee compared to his sniper shots. But he's had nowhere to go. He hasn't been able to fire most of the game. One of his attack animations takes him briefly to safety, though I don't suspect he'll stay that way for long. Tzeentch will probably have his minions upon Tzeentch within the hour. Before dawn rises, that giant monolith thing will fall. There they go. Grand Cathay's cavalry breaks, the Forsaken heroes get free, and back onto Tzeentch they go for the 50th time this game. Without blue fire, the Shugenin Lord is proving difficult to truly finish off. Tzeentch tries to throw in guard mode and shoot the Golden Griffin. He gets one good shot before those heroes in Forsaken distract him yet again. More cavalry getting ground down by Forsaken and Zongors. And they can't even freely cycle charge because the heroes are getting some decent shots on them whenever they come in and go out and come in and go out. Looks like Tzeentch's Firestorm is getting cast, but unfortunately it's just as the cavalry forces disperse. It's going to largely be a miss unless Fate smiles upon Tzeentch and hits these Jade Warrior Halberds. The weird ion cannon flames are coming nearer, but it's not going to happen. So just a whiffed cast from Tzeentch. Happens. Bounce Power's army losses territory as Tzeentch is getting very, very low, honestly close to his crumbling point. And an overcast from the Alchemist in the distance. Don't even know what she was casting on. It was Plague of Rust overcast onto the chariots, but the damage on her might be enough to tip us into army losses as Tzeentch goes down, and there it is. Well, I guess ask and you shall receive. That was a quick game 3, giving SiPa the lead in this series. Not a lot of value on the triple heroes of the TheGreenOne. Jade Lancers and Peasant Horsemen also struggled, so just not a lot of value all around for that side. SiPa, his hero core did nicely, including the Golden Griffin, very nicely. Zongor's Forsaken did all right. They did solid. Chariots and the Skirmish Cav did okay as well. GG's. Ruh-roh Raggy. The TheGreenOne's betting it all on vampire counts versus the Chaos Dwarves. I actually really like this matchup for the Chaos Dwarves, but not with the build SiPa's taking. I tend to go much wider with a bunch of guns and stuff. This looks a little risky, but I get it. Mobility Kite, a lot of fire damage to reduce their healing. Makes sense. As I put my beverage down and get back to focusing. All right, for the TheGreenOne, he's got to win this game to stay in the series and take us to game 5. Dire Pack, Black Knights, and then double Vargulf, Heinrich Kemmler with Wind of Death, Raise Dead, and Invocation of Nahek for his spells. We have a couple of Crypt Horrors, a Corpse Cart of Balefire with fire and magic damage. Interesting. And then Graveguard, Skeleton Warriors, and Zombies. Very wide vampire counts build. Oh, he has 2 corpse cards. So one's an Unholy Lodestone, the other one's Balefire. All right, makes sense. It's curious. Balefire's not bad. It's just if you don't see an Unholy Lodestone, you just see Balefire. It felt a little weird. On the other side, for the Chaos Dwarves, we have 4 Hobgoblin Wolf Riders with bows, Iron Demon, ROR, the Demon's Tongue, and then we have double Bale Taurus, Shaman Sorcerer of Metal with Searing Doom, and then does he have his Reforged? No, so no heal for the Iron Demon. And then he also has a Firecaster as his Lord, Fireball and Cascading Fire Cloak for him. Cool. 2 Bull Centaur Hunters of Grey Opens and 2 Goblin Laborers far in the back. The Dire Pack jump out of the trees for a bit of an ambush. They do end up getting Invocation of Nahek to try and heal them up a little bit, but they are on fire and just getting absolutely murked. But in comes the Black Knights and the Vargulf, so it was all just a holding pattern for the Dire Pack to keep those Skirmish Cav in place while the Black Knights get here. Now those Goblins are routing off, and can the Dire Pack take them to the edge of the map? I'm sure the Vampire counts hope so. Undeath Resurgent giving the dogs a little bit more leadership to stop their crumbling for just a second. Black Knights trying to peel the Bale Taurus and the Iron Demon off the dogs, because the dogs are the only ones that can keep up with the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, right? They're pretty fast. Fast little gobbos. Edge of the map is pretty far away, and the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders are separating, so the dogs have to pick one. They go after the more wounded one that is running into the trees, and they're just going to try and pick it off, actually getting another Invocation of Heck to try and keep them in this. They shatter the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders. I wonder, do they run after the other ones, or do they just regroup and hope to regenerate a lot more over the course of this game? Black Knights still kind of harassing the Bale Horses, keeping them on the ground. The Dire Pack are going to get away. It looks like they might go over towards the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders if those guys don't immediately get orders. But yeah, they're going to get orders to go back in the field, so the Dire Pack will get orders to get back to the Vampire Count's line. Seems fine. Other Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders still just on the back line, harassing Crypt Horrors. Getting decent damage down there. Crypt Horrors weak to fire, no shields, very low armor. Makes a lot of sense. So good early trade for the Vampire Counts. Got a Hobgoblin Wolf Raider and a half with their charge, but still, the constant harassment is wearing on. The other Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders that are still alive are getting decent damage out. We have a Fireball coming from the trees. Doesn't manage to get stuck on any trees, and is going to smite down one of the Crypt Horrors. Kind of surprised the Vampire Counts didn't take the point as they walked past. You think that they would want to start that timer before the highly mobile skirmish forces of the Chaos Dwarves have to actually fight them. Breath attack down onto the Crypt Horrors. While they're still moving, actually got a decent amount of damage. Normally, breath attacks only usually work when something is already sitting still. But the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders are not that strong of skirmishers. They're particularly strong against the Vampire Counts because you have units that are weak to fire, like the Vargulfs and the Crypt Horrors. But even then, it's not like we're talking about Way Watchers or anything, right? They're not going to take down this build. So SiPa's trying to slow play this. SiPa's trying to get the damage out he needs to, but it's not going to be quick damage by any means. The Iron Demon gets a little charge in that has to use more power to get away from the Vargulfs that were closing in. Another breath attack is down onto Skeleton Spearmen this time. Takes about a quarter of their HP, but they'll be okay. And yeah, now the green one is taking the time to capture that point. Iron Demon flirting with disaster a little bit in the background. So I take my hands off the keyboard once again for a drink. Anyway, point being, Vargulfs are chasing that around, but when the Vargulfs are not nearby, the Demonsmith Sorcerer and the Sorcerer Prophet did try and get some damage out, but now we have Black Knights and Heinrich Kemmler trying to harass the Sorcerer Prophet of Fire. Kemmler did get in a little too far, throws down an Invocation of Nehek on himself, and starts to run away. I get that he was scared, but the heal felt a little preemptive. Vargulfs do manage to find the Iron Demon, though. 80 speed versus its 60. They were able to catch up to it. Didn't get that much damage in before backing off, however. And the Dire Pack are once again getting dove on by the single entities, but I'm glad the Counts have now taken the point. It does put a timer on things. I wish they had done so a little bit earlier, but still. 10 minutes until the Chaos Dwarves will just lose unless they manage to take that point, which is going to be difficult with so few ground forces. Like, 2 Bulls and Durenders and 2 Goblin Laborers. Good luck taking that point, dude. Wolf Archers still harassing the Crypt Horrors. These ones are already very low. Still have 11 models, though. Can get some good healing, and they start to back off to get just that going for them as Crypt Horrors and Black Knights continue to peel off these skirmishers. And another breath attack down onto Graveguard. And a little poking of Kemmler, but mostly was aiming at the Graveguard there. And SiPa continues to harass, continues to push around the Vampire Counts wherever the Vargulfs aren't, wherever the Black Knights, the Crypt Horrors leave gaps, they're going to charge in and get some damage down, though the overextension might be here. Iron Demon plows straight into Crypt Horrors, and so far it is pushing through them. Again, more power gives it acceleration and mass. It needs to get out of here as the Vargulfs come back in once again. Not that much damage. And as long as the Counts don't die, they're winning, right? They're sitting, they're healing, they're holding the point. And Kemmler is even getting a couple hits in on the Iron Demon here. Vargulf cancels his attack animation, honestly cuts off Kemmler too. In the far distance, Black Knights getting in pretty deep. Looks like they got a little damage on the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, but the double Baled Horses landed on them. Did a ton of damage, and now the Black Knights are forced to fall back. Gonna probably try and find that Unholy Lodestone Corpse card. That could heal them up nicely. Chaos Tombblade has not gotten much done, because Kemmler hasn't been able to be in melee much to support his forces. Dire Pack do get isolated out by Goblin Laborers. And the Vargulfs are once again chasing down the Demon's Tongue. Black Knight's still trying to get back to the formation. I wonder if Kemmler is going to charge over and just throw his body at the Goblin Laborers to proc the Chaos Toonblade for any amount of time in this game. That would help save his Dire Pack. Just the extra healing and whatnot, but he's not going to do it. He's not going to get in there. Now he starts to. The Dire Pack have to get a little closer if they want that healing. In comes a Searing Doom, I believe it is. Dire Pack gonna dodge it. Super Wounded Cryptor is gonna dodge it. Graveguard just take a little bit of damage. Both Goblin Laborers are already routing. We have 7 minutes left on the clock before the Vampire Counts just win it. Bull Centaur Renders are falling back from the double Vargulf Kemmler, as per usual. And there go the Dire Pack. Dire Pack are probably doomed at this point, but Demon's Tongue, you might be in a little bit of trouble. I wonder if it's more power is... Yep, there it is. More power is off cooldown yet again. SiPa only seems to overextend it when he has that, but still the Vargulfs get a decent drubbing on it as it leaves, and it's down to half HP. Balance power is about 50-50. These Vampire Counts continue to attrition under the constant pressure of the Chaos Dwarf cycle charging and kiting and spells and arrows. But there's just not a lot of them. There's not a lot of spells. There's not a lot of arrows. The Counts still have plenty of units left to stand on the point ominously. Down in their gully. Kemmler again charges in, again wants to punish the Sorcerer Prophet just a little bit. And his Dark Chalice is on cooldown, so he actually just got a heal relatively recently from Kemmler casting something somewhere. And the Vargulfs are vibing next to the point, next to Skeleton Warriors. Not really that worried about anything going on. Kemmler falls back. And we're halfway there on the capture point, boys and girls. Strong reminder, if it's Conquest and you're getting kited, take the capture point, just in case. Just in case. Vargulf's getting some good hits on the Iron Demon, but down come 2 Bull Centaur Renders. But Cryptors and Zombies are able to protect the Vargulfs, make sure they don't get isolated and surrounded. Something is happening over there. It is a zombie summon behind the Bull Centaur Renders, but it looks like the Chaos Dwarves are going all in on this engagement. Really liking the downhill charge they got. They do jump both. Bale Tauruses in, but Krell is out. The one-time Krell summon appears. Krell needs to just fight whatever. I know it's tempting to click him on the enemy lord or whatever, but his weapon strength is really high, and he's an infantry-sized character in a monster mash. Just anything he's hitting is a good target at this point. You know, there's no Goblin Laborers or anything. Obviously, if there were those, then that'd be more problematic, but just swing at the Bull Centaur Renders, get good damage on their butts, and it looks like that is what's going to happen. Corpse card of Balefire is around, offering everybody a little extra stats, but also magic and fire damage. Fire resist on some of these units is actually doing good work, though, so I don't know about bringing the Balefire. Chaos Dwarves have a good amount of fire resist. Don't really know what that's about. They don't have the most healing. They don't really need it. I don't love it. I don't love it. They also don't have that much physical resistance. 20% on the Demon's Tongue if you happen to be near it with a corpse card that's too slow, but meanwhile, all these other units are just tankier to you because of their fire resistance. Ooh, yes. Take out the Balefire card. Please, please. That's it. It's an epic bait. It's just a bait because he thinks the corpse card is good when it's actually hurting his team. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Okay. Chaos Dwarves doing the Vampire Counts a little bit of a favor and taking away their fire damage. Now the Unholy Lodestone is still around to provide that perfect vigor and extra melee attack and melee defense, plus healing, etc., etc. Now a little more damage can get out. Bull Centaur Renders at half HP as Krell continues to pile on. Looks like he has about 90 seconds, 70, 80 seconds left. He's gotten 600 values, definitely worth the summon. 200 seconds left until the Vampire Counts win, and the Chaos Dwarves are nowhere closer to taking that point than they were when it was 100 seconds. Kemmler gets a little damage on the Demon's Tongue before falling back because Bale Tauruses are eyeing him hungrily. Still have both Vargulfs, still have a corpse card of Unholy Lodestone, still have a decent amount of infantry, and we have 1 Cryptor. Though to the Chaos Dwarf and SiPa's credit, they have taken out a lot of Cryptors, bringing us down to just 1. And Krell is going to fade away in 40 seconds. So maybe the Chaos Dwarves can win this. Now, neither of their Bale Tauruses have any capture weight. They're flying units. Flying units can't capture. You do need some of your ground forces to be able to break through. And I actually think the Vampire Counts are in a really good spot, honestly. Krell gets back in onto the Caster Lord, is going to get a little bit of damage before fading away. It's decent, but the Vampires spam out spells enough that this dude's going to heal up easily. Yeah, Chalice of Blood and Darkness is already procced. So it doesn't matter. The damage is damage. We take those. And the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, 5 volleys left. Where's the other one? Oh, the other one's like in here. 0 volleys left. 1 volley left. Yeah, not a lot of ammo left on those Raiders. Kemmler's taking a lot of damage, but 2 minutes left until the Counts win on points alone. Vargulf's continuing to duel with the Bale Tauruses, just bullying them, harassing them, making sure they don't get to sit around for free. Unholy Lodestone's trying to heal itself up while it sits on top of Graveguard, but it's not going to be the case, as the Bull Centaur Renders will finish off that final Corpse Guard. Vampire Counts all of a sudden not going to have Perfect Vigor, not going to have increased melee attack, and melee defense is pretty brutal. Vargulf's continuing to fight it out. You can see the Chaos Dwarves are starting to just plow into the point. They're just throwing all their bodies at it and hoping they can out-capture the Vampire Count hordes. Unlikely, but they're trying to. 90 seconds left in the play, a minute and a half until you just lose. Vargulf's still chasing around the Demon's Tongue. Not content to let that thing sit on the outskirts. Really wants to kill it off, but instead does need to come to the rescue of his brother, the other Vargulf. Bull Centaur Render is going to tear out off. The other ones are also very low. Hobgoblin Wolf Raider is very low. So still just not a lot of capture weight here. As long as Kemmler buys his time and doesn't overcommit, he will be fine. Undeath Resurgent gives everybody a little extra leadership and melee defense to just be tankier. 1 minute and counting. There is no shot. There's no shot the Chaos Dwarves take this in a minute. You'd have to go from 50-50 to army losses in a minute, or capture this point, which neither of those are going to happen. GreenOne has just piled all of his infantry towards the point. He's like, yeah, we're just going to chuck them here. You don't have any good crowd clearing spells that you brought with you. I guess you have Searing Doom, so yeah, maybe they should separate out. Otherwise, they'll get hit in the face with the Searing Doom. 35 seconds remaining. Bull Centaur Renders, one is routing, the other one's stuck in random zombies. The Iron Demon is also very low and continuing to get harassed by Vargulf, and now Kemmler is going to charge in there after it. Decent damage down from him and the Vargulf. It's getting very close to dying. The Bale Tauruses are just stuck sitting and fighting. They know they can't cycle charge anymore. They just need to be here, but 10 seconds remain. No progress on the capture point. And that is going to be a win for the Vampire Counts and the GreenOne, taking us to game 5. There's no hope. Iron Demon's getting actually insane value on Kemmler, but it didn't matter. That is the problem with those more old school, slow, single entity kite style builds on Conquest is usually you can't do it in an amount of time that matters for the capture point, especially against like something healing the Vampire Counts. Vargulf's did great, Kemmler did great, Direpack did great, everything else kind of had to just eat damage, so not really going to get a ton of value there. For SiPa, his Bale Taurus Lords both did fantastically. Bull Centaur Renders did okay. Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders did very solid. The Iron Demon also did a great job, but healing, they did get inflated values from killing a lot of healing units. GG's on to game 5. It's Caradrian. I don't know the obsession about him this tournament, man. I don't think he's trash, but I don't think he's optimal, but I see him all the time on the High Elf builds. All right. SiPa's betting it all on High Elves. GreenOne's betting it all on Norsca. We'll see who prevails. Oceanid's certainly very scary, and I do not see a lot of magic damage here. Yeah, he has Searing Doom, Plague of Rust, and Final Transmutation. Ooh, that is a rough start for Norsca on the build phase. No Flaming Sword of Ruin. I know they're resistant to fire damage, but just getting magic damage against the Oceanids could be worth it, or Aspect of the Dread Knight or something. Some form of magic damage to tear them down. Gonna be rough. For the Norskins, we have Marauder Horsemen, including the ROR, Riders of the Mighty Serpent, 1 Throwing Axe, variant 2. Marauder Frontline, Marauder Ice Wolf Chariot, Norscan Ice Wolves, then Skin Wolves, Armored Skin Wolves, in the form of the Maws of Savage. Ooh, yeah, both, sorry. Multiple Armored Skin Wolves, one of which is the Maws of Savagery. And we have a Great Shaman Sorcerer of Metal with Plague of Rust, Searing Doom, Final Transmutation in case of blobs. On the other side, we have Caradrian on his Frost Phoenix. Some very expensive up there, Blizzard Aura, and then his AoE Mortis Engine ability if he gets super low. To prevent him from ever getting low, we have Alariel the Radiant with Earthblood and Star of Avalorn as her only, I guess not spells. Star of Avalorn's like an ability, so one spell, Earthblood. Lion Chariots of Crace, triple Oceanid, then some archers, spearmen, and Lothern Seaguard. It's an Oceanid heavy build. And Caradrian. Oceanids and Caradrian taking a lot of that available funding, leaving us just with some cheap spearmen and a couple archers. All right, Norsca's moving up to take the point, but the Lion Chariots and Caradrian consistently trying to convince them not to do that. And the Skin Wolves making sure that the Lion Chariots don't get a little big for their britches and charge straight into the Marauders. Archers trying to get in range and start punishing the enemy front line as they wait to get on the point. And here we go. Buckle up for game 5. So here's the thing. The Vampire Counts game in game 4 was long, but it honestly wasn't that close. The Vampire Counts were never really in danger of losing that game after they captured the point. It didn't come close to the Chaos Dwarves army lossing them or taking it from them. So it was a long game, but it was honestly pretty one-sided from the Vampire Counts. SiPa did a lot of damage, but as far as advancing win conditions go, he was never that close to securing a win, is my point. Game 3 was not very close, as SiPa did dominate that one, if I remember correctly. His Tzeentchian forces quickly overran Grand Cathay's thin line, and then Tzeentch just was not able to fire. Games 1 and 2 were both insanely close, coming down to the last brief skirmish as both sides wavered on the edge of collapse, and each player won one of those. So we had one stomp, in my opinion, and one very close game from each player. How will game 5 turn out? We'll see. Enough ambling about. It seems Caradrian's going to finally get a duel with the Shaman Sorcerer of Metal, who was pretty lucky to get out there with taking too much damage. Now Caradrian is surrounded. Maws of Savagery going to tear into him as Marauders just provide a little bit of mass. Ice Wolf Chariots fighting Lion Chariots of Crace. Lion Chariots come out on top, and Oceanids run out to just harass the Marauders. Not a lot of threat on the enemy build against these Oceanids. They're feeling pretty good, especially with Alarielle in their back pocket to heal them up whenever they need it. Archers firing away, though the green one did manage to slip some dogs past the Spearmen of SiPa and is already harassing some of the archers. The Oceanids are getting quickly to the point of routing Marauders. Caradrian's lost a third of his HP, started to get some healing from Alarielle. And archers continue to try and throw guard mode on and fire at the skirmish cavalry, getting some damage, but not a ton. Norscan Ice Wolves punishing other archers, but Oceanids have come back to peel, and the frozen doggos are going to get all wet. That'll probably make their fur all prickly and bristly, you know, when you get wet and then frozen right away. It's just not going to be fun. Norscan Ice Wolves get onto the other archers. There's only one Oceanid to peel off 2 dogs. They are taking turns fighting the archers. Meanwhile, over here, Spearmen get a Star of Avalorn out nice and early. So good pressure from Norsca, forcing out one of those 2 precious Star of Avalorn casts. And good job by Norsca isolating out the Oceanids. That did probably overextend, but they were counting on more healing from Alarielle, and then she got distracted and busy in the backline. Earthblood going onto the center formation too. So yeah, one of the Oceanids looks to just be sacrificed to the Dark Gods by the High Elves, and that is a bit of a mistake from SiPa in this tense Game 5. It has certainly been a long series, so you can expect to see some mistakes, but Norsca so far has found some clever angles and some crafty machinations, while SiPa has been caught flat-footed a couple times. But overall, the strength of his build is coming through. Caradrian, the Oceanids, the Lion Chariots have so far been more than a match for the skirmishing and faster elements of the Norscans, pushing them away at several points, keeping their archers relatively safe. Marauder Horsemen commit to melee, trying to melee down the archers a little bit, but there's Spearmen, there's Oceanids nearby once again. And the dogs coming back. We do see some High Elf archers separating from the forces they rout, and Norsca's got to find units that are able to chase them down. I would like some of the wounded dogs to go after those archers, just don't let them come back. But it looks like instead they're going to be committed to the main force. High Elf frontline is holding for now. The flanks are getting a little more dodgy as Lothern Seaguard hold against Norscan Ice Wolves. Oceanids hold against other Norscan Ice Wolves. And this does seem to be an overreach. I was praising Norsca in the early game, but these Norscan Ice Wolves are getting nothing done against Spears in the Oceans. They need to back off, and they're just not doing it, so they are going to get killed for pretty much free. Archers were allowed to come back, but Marauder Horsemen rallied nearby and are also able to jump on those archers. So at least those archers will run away, but some of the dogs just suffering a death they didn't need to. Marauder frontline is losing out overall, getting pushed back, and the High Elves will control the point within a moment or two. You can see they're taking it back rather effectively. Marauder Ice Wolf Chariot down to 2 models is charging over to help some Armored Skin Wolves against Oceanids and the Lion Chariots of Krace. Armored Skin Wolves without support, though. They're fighting on top of enemy spears. So Norsca had a good early game, but the late game is flummoxing them. Some mischaracteristic throws here of a couple of units ending up in really bad situations. Those Skin Wolves are going to fall back and get some heals off. Final Transmutation Overcast onto Caradrian. Big old blob trying to keep him in place and punish him. Archers are firing in, but with Caradrian, you either got to leave him alone or you got to kill him. You can't half-ass it, because Alarielle's going to heal him up, and if you get him low and don't finish him, that Mortis Engine effect is going to start really chunking out your army. We do need to be on fraud watch. Alarielle is a bit of a fraud in the late game. When she's full health and everyone else is getting damaged, the balance of power treats her like a real threat, but after her Winds of Magic are spent, she is a non-factor of a character. Star of Avalorn trying to heal up Caradrian. Earthblood as well. His Mortis Engine effect has not procced. Marauder Horsemen are collapsing in on the backline of these Spearmen and Lion Chariots, trying to get extra damage out. So far, Norsca has been getting a lot of damage value of this fight, but they haven't claimed any lives yet, and the Terror Routes are starting to come in. Maws of Savagery also thinking about routing a Searing Doom, get some decent damage down onto the Spearmen of the High Elves, but without a Source of Terror, they can't finish the job on the Spearmen, and Caradrian will survive. Very damaged. Bounce power is army losses territory for Norsca, and they throw in the towel. Unable to finish off Caradrian, they just decide they can't do it, and yeah. The Oceanids proved to be quite a problem for them without sufficient magic damage. One overextended and died, but the other two played it pretty safe. Lothern Seaguard and Lion Chariots did well. Archers did pretty well. Spearmen held the front line, and then Caradrian just tanked for a while. He didn't get that much value, but I guess he distracted the green one. Green one had a good early game, but the skirmish cav not being able to find time to just shoot at the Oceanids and then dogs getting slowly whittled away and pushed off was pretty rough. Also, Armored Skin Wolves are usually good against High Elf Cavalry, except for the Fireborn, but in the new age of Oceanids and Caradrian and whatnot, they don't have the oomph. Sure, they're armored and Oceanids don't have armor piercing, but Oceanids just have really high weapon strength and high melee defense, so they'll be fine. It was a banger series. Very well played by these two, but SiPa will be moving on to the top 16. And the green one, unfortunately, his run ends here, but he made it further than I did, so hold your head up, buddy. Good to see you playing. For people out there asking about a bracket, we will get a bracket up soon. I took a screenshot of it now that they're in the top 16, because the top 32, I don't want to go into it, but there was some stuff of like extra rounds being played and it didn't all fit on one screen. It was messy. It's just like, all right, just for the cleanness of the graphic, I'll start showing a bracket and like advancing people's names along it towards the finals once we get to top 16. So just so you know, people have been asking about that sort of thing. Yeah. That's all I got for you. 5-game series. SiPa wins it. I'll put a 3 on the screen for anybody who's a little confused of like, wait, I got a lost in the sauce. Who won? SiPa did. See y'all around. Roar. Subscribe, yes.